Now, all right, everyone, welcome to this portion of the show. This will be for the YouTube replay, and it will be posted on YouTube. This is the Akashic Focus Accelerator, the show that helps creators find their focus, that big, beautiful question that they're here to explore. It's another way of helping them find their focus, their purpose. So the question you're here to explore for at least the next 1 to 5 years, if not your lifetime. And it's basically based on the premise that for every creative, whether it's the novel you're writing, the song, I mean, the album that you're making, the film you're making, every film, novel, album, is basically a different variation on the same question that you're here to explore. And if you're lucky, the thing that's important and urgent to you is also important and urgent to other people as well. And that's another way of basically getting the success that you want, and that's as well as the fulfillment that you want, because the question actually has to be meaningful to you as well. And then that's how it works. If it's meaningful enough to you, then it may be meaningful enough to enough other people as well. And the other premise is that I can also, through the Akashic records, give you any advice that you need to finish an unfinished piece, or in general, like why you might have some of these unfinished pieces, that give you some insight into that. And today's guest, we have Vandana Singh, who is a film director and producer. Welcome, Vandana.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for the request to bring me on live. And also, I have a very neat question for you, so I'm excited. Thank you.
Yeah. Before we open your Akashic records, I'm curious, what in general, what has intrigued you about, my work in the world, and what transformational learning you've already got so far as well that, made you want to go deeper by being on the show as well.
I think your ability to connect with people from all around the world of all ages, and also they come from different professions. So I like that you have curated this show and your practice with people that genuinely do like their livelihood things, and then there's professionals. So the range of people, you are open to everyone and anyone.
Yeah, exactly. It's because I'm also a multi-creative person myself. I paint, I sing, I dance, or I write, and I tell stories, and poetry, all of these things. And even for me, I had to find what is the angle from which I'm doing, right? The focal point or the focus. And for me, it's two main things. One is the way I express myself, right? So in the eyes of other people, I am doing all these different things, right? But for me, I'm doing the same thing. They're just different expressions of the same thing.
Sure.
So I'm trying to portray space in a lot of my work. So in my paintings, for example, a lot of painters, when they paint, they focus on the lines, right? Like the lines are the focus. For me, it's not the lines, it's the space itself, the spaces between the lines. So I use the lines to portray. Yeah, I use the lines to portray space. So I invert it. Other people use space to showcase the lines. I use the lines to showcase the space. And it's the same thing in my music, where I do pauses between the music on purpose. I even did that on Cosmos's Live, where we met, where I did the pauses between, and I would increase the pauses, the silences in between the music, until the very end, the silence becomes longer and longer. And the idea is to get you closer to your own inner silence, inner space, that infinite space.
Interesting technique.
So I did that with music. And I do that in my poetry, where I would, whenever I talk about space, or whenever I talk about breathing, whenever those words show up in my poetry, I would literally pause, almost like getting the reader or the audience to also pause with me, because they have to because they're listening, so they have to pause with me as I pause it. That gets them into that space as well.
I see. Very nice.
Yeah.
It's an interesting technique because you see who's falling off board, their attention is going left.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And yeah, so space, so that has to do with the technique. And then the message or the question that I'm here to explore is really about reclaiming wholeness. Like in a world that wants me as a queer, indigenous, non-binary person uh, to not be whole, to be divided inside myself, to be inside the false binaries that they create, like, either you're good or evil, you're perfect, or this demon savage that they want us to see. Whereas people that are melanated or that have, a skin color that's different from the people in power, they want us to be either the perfect magical monkeys or magical fairies. And if we make even a little bit of a mistake, we fall from that pedestal and we become their demons and savages. So we're not allowed to be in the middle,
Mm-hmm.
to just be human. So I'm here to reclaim my humanity, reclaim my wholeness, and be like, no, I'm both. Like I have, what you might call an evil side in me, and I have my
Right.
good days and my bad days, and it's okay for
Right.
me to be that human and somebody who's just whole. So a lot of my
Sure.
work
Sure.
the last 2 or 3 years has been just reclaiming that. So for me, that's my focal point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you know how we're always preaching, it's okay to say no, it's good to say no, but then we also have to kind of acknowledge ourselves.
Yeah.
And like we too are the bad and good. We are the X and the Y to our problem, or
Yeah.
something
Mm.
even more like positive. We're feeding ourselves the unreality of
Hmm.
things because we want to keep ourselves afloat.
Yeah. Some days I'm peaceful and some days I'm angry, right? And my moments when I get angry doesn't mean I'm evil. And the moments when I'm peaceful doesn't mean that I am this, enlightened monk or the saint, right? It's just me. Both cases are just me being human in my human moments.
I see.
So yeah, let's go into the main premise of the show. So let's open up your Akashic records and you go, and Vandana sings your name, right? Yeah. And so yeah, do I have your permission to open up your Akashic records?
Yes.
Okay, so let's open up your Akashic records according to the information you already gave me. And your records are now open. Yeah, how are you feeling?
Good.
Good. So I'm
Curious.
curious. Yeah.
Creatively curious.
That's a good place to be. There's an opening message already, but it's almost like the vision's a little cloudy, which itself might be part of the message actually. And I see like a door opening, but it's like uh the color is like very like very black in the sense that uh, almost like a wall, right? Not like the dark void where we get into that inner peace, but maybe it's about to get there uh, at some point. But there's also like fire, sort of like a fire at their top. So which may also be part of what's stopping this character, because there is a character going through the doorway, and which may or may not be you, or may or may not represent you, but So that's the scene, right? It's almost like a scene in a play or movie, right? That's being shown to me. And I can ask them like what it means, but do you like what comes up for you immediately? Like,
It could be because my meditation was creative, like a
mm,
creative curious.
mm,
It could be that I have an unfinished project,
mm,
right, currently, and it's great because it ties into my question, which would be a year question, 5 years. Who really knows the time period on it?
mhm,
But my question is, maybe that dark figure is not necessarily representing me, but representing like a creative partner.
mm,
Maybe I had ties to a creative production, which is ongoing. And I'm trying to ask the question of how to kind of unchallenge myself to continue to create with that person, because this person has a dark energy to them,
mm,
which that has no tie to me. It's just showing me in my record that this person may be in a dark place,
mhm,
and therefore they can't come to face with me, which I may be on the other side of that door
mhm,
because they have no means to either continue to create or find a meaning to completely push me out of
mhm.
what is being created. I actually wrote this question down for you, but I don't know where my notebook is. Actually, I will
Yeah.
grab it. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
Okay, I'm back. So my question is, how how can I um,
Mm.
recommit to an unfinished project
How can I recommit to an unfinished project? Yeah.
with a partner that is unwilling?
With a creative partner, right? With unwilling.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah. It's funny, before we go into that question, it's also funny because we just did a show on Wednesday with my friend Calvin for his show, What's the Word
Mm-hmm.
Wednesday? The topic was light versus dark, and how light, even though we automatically assume light to be good and darkness to be evil, which is again that false binary. Like we went deep into that and we were like, both light and darkness can have both good and bad aspects. Like you can be blinded by the light, for example, right? That's how light can be bad. And then the dark can also be, like I said earlier, going into the dark void, right? Which is actually very peaceful. But it can also be represent what's hidden because there's no light in there, right? Uh, and what's hidden can also be good or bad, like can be hidden, kept secret for nefarious purposes, right? Or it can be hidden to be protected, right? So like it kind of, in the sense that I got from, yeah, it's more of that meaning when I saw this. It's not so much a figure, when there is a figure in front of that, the dark space,
Mm-hmm.
but the dark space itself almost like there is, yeah, it's possible there's a figure, another figure behind the dark space
Sure.
who is hiding something even from themselves, where they don't know, uh, they're behaving in a certain way because they don't know who they are, or something along the lines. So they may or may not be manipulative, or if they are, then even they themselves might not be consciously aware of like what they're doing or the impact of their actions, right? That sort of sense, in that sense. Yeah.
Sure thing. I mean, that's kind of like on point with
Mhm.
perhaps of what this person is
Mhm.
going through.
Mhm.
So my question would just be, how can I retie myself to continue? Or is it a point, or I can get some type of guidance to fully disconnect?
Yeah.
Where
Yeah,
I
I'm
would
glad.
now be challenging my creativity because I have to get rid of that interest to create.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm glad your question is expanding more, right?
Right. And
Yeah.
this project is also, I find it to be something that the two people really need to be tied together to complete something like
Yeah.
this. And without it, it just kind of becomes an ongoing thing that will probably never get completed
Yeah. All
or
right. So,
find different forms of that project to continue.
yeah. Okay, so they're already asking you a question back, which is like, why do you feel that you specifically need this person, or really any person, right, to to complete this project or move forward with it?
That project is something of their creation initially,
Mm, mm,
and I just happen to be a very close partner to this production, to this
mm,
project.
okay. Is there like a contract that you both wrote, or?
Sure, there were contracts. Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a project that has multiple parts to it.
Mm,
So, leaving it open, sure, I think letting it be what it is could just finish it there or continue it as initially started.
okay. All right, so let me actually ask the question properly to the question. And also for you and the audience, like, this is an open eye process. I'm literally looking into the space or the
Sure.
Akash, which is why I often look up when I'm accessing the Akash records. So,
Yeah. Yes.
so they're saying that this is really a two-part question, right?
Okay.
So you thought it was one question. It's actually two, and it's depending on how you want to move forward, right? Like if you want to stay with this partner, then the real question is like, how do I persuade or inspire or encourage this person uh, to pull their weight,
Okay.
basically, because it sounds like you're not satisfied with their portion of what they do, how much of they're contributing to the project, right?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I wrote down like, there is an unwillingness to communicate.
Mm,
And that
right.
is a huge factor to this,
Hmm.
a huge factor to why it is not continuing, like the creative process is not continuing, because there is a lack of communication and a lack of acknowledging reality.
Hmm. Yeah. So that's like the first question. And the second would be like, how do I let go of this person and continue with the project on my own? That is, if you even want to continue with the project on your own, right? And if you don't want to continue with the project on that, this is the third question, which would be, how do I let go of the whole thing, the whole project altogether,
Right.
right?
Right.
Like,
Sure thing.
So like, which is the one that you're interested in?
I'm interested in definitely to let go. Reason being is because I personally think I have moved forward because I have continued to create.
To let go of the whole thing?
Correct.
Or just, okay.
Just let go of the whole thing because there's so much more to create, so many more creatives to collaborate with. And I find myself networking better and finding better teammates to also collaborate with, because it's a really good example, or I should say, a good outlook for me to see what can and cannot happen with productions, or how productions sometimes do start up, never get finished, or frankly, you get on a production and then by the end of the season, you're not on the production anymore.
Yeah.
It could be personal interest or it could be contract rules.
Right. So like, what's stopping you from letting go? Is it purely the legal contracts that you signed with this person, or is it just a conversation you need to have?
Definitely communication is one of the biggest things because there are contracts. But overall, I think the difficulty I'm having with letting it go, aside from the biggest factor of it all, which is financial, aside from that, it's because I came together. This was one of my first opportunities to do something bigger than I could ever believe, or bigger than I could ever imagine for myself at the moment. But also because it's a creative story that I wish to tell. And everyone that worked on this, I wish to bring to light, because there was a lot of foreign talent that came on. There was a lot of local talent. Talents from all around the world really came together to put this production together. With circumstances, with challenges, we got it done. And now we're waiting to see a final product of something that we all put our time and energy into to see come to life with a really cool message behind it.
Yeah.
So that's my main thing, why I've been having a difficult time letting it go. It's truly because I collaborated with a lot of creatives.
So the project is still meaningful to you. It's just that you want to let go because you're frustrated with this person and the lack of communication.
Sure. Yeah. That would be actually the best way to put it. Yeah.
So is this
There's
person,
no communication.
Is this person paying you, or is there funding coming from outside?
Actually, this is where I was saying the biggest factor is financial. It's because this was mainly executive produced by myself.
Oh. Okay.
By myself, and other executive producers were also involved in it. But with the factors that came during production, I did take a lot of like financial responsibility during production, because I wished for people to be safe, myself as well.
Yeah. So does this person have like a bigger name in the industry, or like, is there?
I don't know. I don't follow the individual. It's not a person that I'm keeping up with. But at the time, I mean, everything was quite convincing, I could say. It was quite professional on paper and professional carried, but
The reason why I ask is because the Akashic is saying there is from this person, for whatever reason, there's a vibe of, there is a kind of vibe of entitlement, where it's like they have almost like there is a sense that for some reason, either their name or whatever it is, that they've already contributed, and they don't have to like do anything more. So that's kind of
Wow.
an entitlement, right?
Yeah. Yeah, there's plenty of personalities like that in the industry and everywhere, but
Mm,
definitely I could see that type of vibration being projected from that person.
mm, okay. Yeah. So let me ask again. So it sounds like if you had the funding and if you found a way to let go of this person, then this project is meaningful enough to you that you would actually continue with this project, right?
I'm not understanding what you mean by financially funded.
Yeah, like if you had the means, uh, whether it's financial or whether it's through labor or even equipment or whatever it is, to continue with the project without the person, then the project itself has and still have enough meaning for you to continue. Like you don't.
I don't have control in that department. I am not the person to continue it. Only that person can continue it.
Oh, okay. So then the real question is for you to find uh, a different project that's just as meaningful and still provides you with the funding you need for your life in general, right?
Correct. So that's where I,
Yeah.
started doing my own. I opened up my own production company called Nice Kick Studios, where now I can build my own productions with my creative team
Mhm.
in order for us to do our own productions.
Mm. So you're already on the path to letting this person go and the project go.
Oh yeah, definitely
Yeah.
have. That is a past tense story that I wanted to bring to light today because we are talking creative, and
Mm,
that was one of my biggest creative hurdles I could
mm,
say in my career of filmmaking, was specifically that because I was financially declining. I was financially hurt,
oh, okay. Yeah.
and along with other factors that came with the production, but mainly
Mm,
my question was, how can I continue to create, whether it's I'm inspiring or persuading,
mhm.
or I just frankly have to come to terms on how to build a working relationship.
Right. So it was more of like a hypothetical or general question in the sense of the present, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That always goes on a case by case or situation basis because as the Akasha showed, like it's there are more questions inside the question, right? Depending on
Hmm.
the person. And sometimes it's about letting go and some of the whole thing. Sometimes just about letting go of the person. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
about like other things, right? It's always sometimes it is about staying with the person and just persuading or inspiring the person to continue.
Yeah.
And
I
you
have a lot
as
of
a creative have to
inspiration in my
decide.
pocket.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a lot of inspiration and creativity that I would love to give back if there
Mhm.
was a, foundational communication that could happen.
Mhm. But it sounds like we're getting we are getting a general principle from this discussion, which is that it's almost as if it's okay for a creative to be multi-creative in the sense that to have at least a a secondary project, which is also a secondary source of income, as well as secondary source of meaning. That's right. To basically not have all your eggs in one basket, because
Absolutely.
either for reasons of money or meaning, we can stay attached to a project for longer than is healthy for us. So
100%.
always have a second thing as well. Could be a general principle from this thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
I agree. 100%.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I love to see creatives go into process of like they're succeeding, but also having their little small failures, because those little failures really teach us
Feeling forward. Yeah.
of
Yeah.
feeling forward.
Mm-hmm.
Happens to me all the time.
Yeah.
Trial and
It's
error.
almost like, yeah, exactly. To have these, which is why, some people do project-based or even process-based way of setting goals, where they have a goal, but the real reason behind it is to develop a skill or learn something in the meantime, rather than the actual goal, so that if they don't accomplish the goal, at least they develop a skill or learn something in the meantime. A learning mindset or a growth mindset way of
Yeah.
doing goal setting,
Oh
It's
yeah.
one
I really
of
had to
those.
teach
Yeah.
myself through like a lot of readings, and to be able to just trust my own judgment, and
Mm-hmm.
also to take a lot of ownership in what I do.
Mm-hmm.
Because without ownership, in specifically in this industry, it's a bit hard. It's a bit hard to see where your work goes and
Mm-hmm.
what you can do with your work after you have created it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I feel like this portion is complete. Let's go into the question that you're here to explore.
Sure.
Yeah, whether it's there, almost like the question that you're here to explore in your next 5 films or your next 5 projects, right? Yeah. So let's go into that. What is the question Vandana is here to explore for the next 1 to 5 years, the next 1 to 5 films projects? It's so funny because it's so related to the question and to what we discussed, because 2 things came out clearly. One was truth. I was like shedding light on truth. The other was
Very
how do
cool.
how do we work with others, right? The reason why that was brought up is because I don't know how it is in the film industry, but like part of toxic positivity culture, which some version of it exists in pretty much every industry, at least in the United States, because of the way things are, because the coaching industry is so full of toxic positivity, right? And a lot of people who are in these creative industries read a lot of these personal development books, and the assumption is, oh, if only you worked hard, or uh, if you think positive, right? But it doesn't. Uh, it ignores the fact that you have to work with real people, especially the bigger your project, the more team members you need, that you have to navigate other people's egos, you have to their desires, personalities. So like you have to learn like other skills like persuasion, influence, right? But when does persuasion and influence turn into control and manipulation, right? So you don't want that either. So like the fact that it's supposed to be a communal thing, but it's, regarded as an individual effort. So almost like each film that you do or each project that you do can highlight like the real struggles that creatives are going through as far as collaborations that it reminds me of the show, I think it's on Showtime or BET, I'm not sure. There's a show called 20s, which is about uh, people in their 20s getting into the film industry and the scriptwriting industry and all of that, and how difficult it is to like navigate, people's egos and things like that. And that show was striking because I'd never seen a show that really like portrayed like, the realities of like these issues. Like,
Yeah, I think we definitely have to dissect and be able to drive ourselves through personalities.
yeah, like how do people work together, and that is not necessarily the question that you're here to explore for your entire life, but it is the question that if you keep up with it could lead to, that big beautiful question. Mm,
Yeah.
yeah. How do you feel about it?
It's so interesting to hear, like insight to thoughts that I already have. They're there.
Mm,
But to acknowledge them, sometimes I do need to hear it from someone else.
mm, yeah.
And I'm just grateful that you're so in tune with your spirituality to be able to bring that to light for me today.
Hmm. And I think this is why from the beginning, in one sense, it's a different kind of reading because the Akash almost didn't give you a clear, straightforward answer to even your first question, because that is actually part of what you're here to explore and for yourself, like over time, rather than get that quick fix or immediate answer.
Mhm. It's definitely a question that helps me
Mhm.
plan better and do
Mm,
better with productions to come, projects to come,
mm,
any type of creativity that I'm going to put my hands on.
mhm.
I have a better understanding on how to take the road.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Very neat.
Mhm. Yeah,
Thank you so much for that.
you're welcome. Yeah. So I hope that's helpful. Do you feel complete as far as the Akashic Records reading?
I did.
Great. So we will close the Akashic Records and then go into the audience Q&A. I think I only have about 3 questions left for
Okay.
you. Like, all right.
Okay.
So let's close the Akashic Records. Records are now closing. Yeah, it's a closing message. It's really cool to see people, uh, people being together and just being curious about each other and sort of like at a party event, but they're also kind of working together. So that was a cool closing message.
You have a closing message for me?
Yeah, that was the closing message. Was like just an
Okay.
image, yeah, of people being together and being curious about each other and staying curious. Yeah.
Yeah, that definitely is part of my team currently. I'm
Mm,
very curious about my team and vice versa.
mm,
We're fresh to each other, but
mm,
becoming extremely familiar quickly.
mm,
And we're realizing that our, creative collaboration is something a lot greater than we could probably even like put to words.
Yeah, that's for the new project, the new
For
production
Virtual
company, right?
Runway.
Yeah,
For
that's
Virtual
awesome.
Runway, for Nice Kick Studios, I'm seeing a lot of creatives that I'm collaborating with now just have a huge purpose that they're now also telling me about, how it's growing bigger and bigger every day because we are going virtual. Everything is becoming this social media and, you know, everything else in between. But we're figuring it out together, and we're encouraging each other to kind of just pull the trigger on what we want to do.
That's awesome. All right, so here's the first question for you. Yuri asked, how does surroundings or culture shape a filmmaker's creativity? That's very relevant to what we just talked about.
Yeah, I wish you had asked that one on IG Live because I'm sure they were all there for that question, but here I am. So culture and community do shape my creativity because they kind of give me my ideas on what I wish to portray with Virtual Runway. Each artist giving me a specific story that they wish to bring to light could be something of culture that, you know, we cannot even fathom the idea of this happening to us because it happened in a different neighborhood, it happened in a different state, different country. That's where I can bring a bunch of stories and put them all into one thing for people to experience. It's an experience that we're creating. So it's shaping our creativity. They bring it to us. They bring us new culture, new stories, a new taste to cinematography. Because all the artists that we are working with are not like your typical artists. They all are in tune spiritually, definitely. And then they also are tying in something greater. Like Emilio has a tie to how social influence is guiding his music, where he finds himself making certain type of music because he thinks that type of music is popular right now, instead of staying in tune with the type of music he creates and give his message, like spread that message you have.
Yeah.
Don't try to fit in, just do you.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's why it's so important as, you know, the people of the global majority. It's important for us to, amplify each other and ourselves to have a real commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion and anti-racism, and to not only hire people who look like us, but also have an environment that actually supports them to thrive in the environments that we create, especially when we have, you know, the control and the systemic power, like when we create our own production company, you know. It's actually one of the things I heard as well from Wong Fu Productions, which is an Asian production company. And they do a lot of YouTube shows. They started on YouTube, and then eventually I think YouTube even hired them to do YouTube originals as well.
I see.
And one of their first shows was about interracial relationships, and and it was a show called Yappy, and it included, you know, relationships between, you know, black people and Asian people and things like that. And they were like, when they did the show, they were like, we want the input of like everyone in the team, like not only, you know, the cast, but the crew, like every single person. Because when they started out in the industry, they had experiences where, you know, people would make a movie about, say, like Asian, that would include Asian people, but would have these racist Asian tropes, right?
I see.
And they were never asked, is this even the right thing to do, right? So it was like when they started their own production company, when they have their own power, they're like, at least when I have the power, I don't want to repeat what those people did and be like, actually make sure we get everyone's contribution. Yeah.
I see. Yeah, I mean, culture, diversity, encouragement from team. Like Yuri, that was Yuri's question, and Yuri actually was one of my biggest supporters, and he encouraged me a lot while we were on set filming, because it's hard. It's hard putting this all together, making sure everything's in order, making sure we have safety on set. Yeah, I had to pull triggers on things. I had to say no to myself, and he was quite encouraging. He brought a different type of film culture onto set.
Yeah, that's really cool. So the next question is Z kind of writer. This was the time management question. What tools help you best manage your time as an artist?
Tools, I would say they're not necessarily tools, because they're people. People have helped me. They have helped me manage my time wisely. Like, I have a business partner, Stan. He's helped me schedule everything down to production dates so well, and also encouraged me along the way to just do it. If you want to film something, you want to produce something, direct something, you got to do it on your own. So that person is definitely thumbs up, kudos to that guy. But scheduling, calendars, making sure I manage a lot of mental health time as well, because creating, going, and having that brain always awake is hard, because I'll try to get some rest at night and I'm awake thinking about something creative. So just managing how much time I give myself in a day to focus on a specific task. And then every day I'm doing something different, or I manage to finish a project, then go on to a next project. So not like overloading my plate with a bunch of productions, and trying to just schedule them out timely and give myself time to take breaks as well.
Yeah, mental health breaks are definitely so important, and especially rest in general, right? Rest from productivity, and rest from the grind, and rest from the way even creativity is framed in our culture here, at least over here in California, the way it's framed as the way it's conflated with productivity, when there are like two different things, right? And and even the way rest is framed, like it's actually one of the things I explored during the summer. I did in Hinduism, there's a thing that you can do called a sadhana, which is like you commit to one thing for 40 days every day. And I went through like 3 sadhanas in the summer, and one of the things that I did was explore creativity itself as a form of rest. And reframe what creativity means to me, what rest means to me, what productivity means to me. And because we often think of rest as, either sleeping all day or meditating all day, like, and that can be a form of rest sometimes, but rest is really whatever rejuvenates and restores you. So if you just run around in the park yelling woohoo, that can be your rest. Like,
it absolutely can. Sometimes you need to go just shake your body.
Yeah, exactly. So I was exploring that, where creativity without a purpose was the way I framed it, where I would go to the park, do my meditation and my sky gazing and all that, and then I would go into just doodling with color pencils, and knowing very well that I would probably never show those pictures to anyone, and that it won't become something else. right? Because remember, my default mode, as I said, is to like think several layers in advance, several steps in advance. Like especially when I learned animation, I started drawing and painting with the idea that someday I'm going to photograph it and get it animated later. So I already had several steps in advance, right?
Okay. Yeah. It's the part of
And
production. It's the part of
right,
production. Yeah.
yeah. And like what will make it easier to animate, right? Or even with these shows,
Mm-hmm.
like what will make it easier for me to uh, edit and cut out clips for Instagram later, right? Which is why I would do the pauses between, right? So that there's enough of a pause. Sometimes I even go so far as to take like musical breaks so that there's enough. That's at least a 5-second pause to easily cut out the
Yeah.
clips. But with
Sure.
what I did in the summer, it was the opposite, where I'm like, I'm just gonna create purely for the sake of creating now and let myself rest, and whatever type of creativity is just soothing for me, like creativity just for me and no one else. Like reclaiming that for myself as a form of rest.
Yep.
Yeah.
It is a form. The forms of rest can be anything.
Mhm.
Anything for a creative mind.
Mhm. And part of what came from that, ironically, is that I got inspired to create both a book and an app for creatives so that they can access that way of creating, where creativity as a form of rest, where they can do that gazing into just the space, through the app. Uh, and if they wanted to share their creativity, there would be a social media side as well, but there would also be a private side to the app, where it would be like a storage facility, where like a Dropbox, where they can just like put whatever they create into this vault, and they would,
Anyone can access it.
so anyone can access, or they can make sure no one can access as well, right? And then there would be
Mm-hmm.
the social media side, where that's where they would share it. So
I
it would
see.
be like two types of creativity. But yeah, it's it's exciting. So the next question is just two more. It's by the same person. My friend Mauricio asked for creative focus. Oh, we already discussed this in length, actually, ironically. How do
Nice.
you how do you know when to walk away from a creative project?
If you're
Uh,
physically going to get hurt, walk away. Walk
yeah,
away.
yeah,
If mentally it is draining you to the point of you going psycho, walk away. Or take a break. Take a
yeah.
break, walk away, and like repurpose yourself on the production or
Mhm,
creative project you have. Find its meaning, and if you can still connect with it, then continue. If you have lost complete connection, then it's probably best for your sake to be like,
mhm.
I gotta go. I gotta go do something else.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, the mental health, the physical health, as well as the loss of meaning and connection. Those are the red flags. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. The final question, which is also by Mauricio, is for project management. How do you manage having multiple ideas and projects on queue without burning out or letting either fall by the wayside?
Sure. On cue, a lot of improvisation with ideas I may already have in the back of my head, and it just happens to be time and place where I
Mhm,
am. Like, hey, this would work out great, especially shooting like commercials and shooting product. Um, a lot of these ideas come from me watching social media videos of people
mhm,
creating things, and then it gives me an idea. So I'm well prepared. Kind of like what you're saying when you were preparing yourself on steps to create the
mhm,
overall thing.
mhm,
I personally like just store those steps in my head. And
mhm,
also when I'm directing or I'm shooting, I'm already like live editing in my head.
mhm.
So it's like, I know which shot I'm going to put after this. So I make sure I have that shot aligned. I know that I have got that specific thing to go follow what I had just created. Organization. Yeah, it's mainly just organization. May I have you repeat the question? I think I'm missing a part of it.
How do you manage having multiple ideas and projects on queue without burning out or letting either fall by the wayside? So there's two like extreme or undesirable possibilities, right? When you handle multiple ideas and projects, one is burning out, so you're doing too much. On the other is you're not able to do everything you want to do. Like something falls by the wayside. Like,
I see. Yeah,
so how
burning
do you
out,
do
it
it? How do you do it
happens.
all? Yeah.
It happens. I just put my mind to it. Like, this is my livelihood. It is something I do for work. And I just have to go in with tricks in my pocket, tricks up my sleeve. So I do not get myself to the point of burnout.
Yeah.
Preparing, pre-production.
Yeah, what
Yeah.
we've been talking about, the pre-production, thinking several steps ahead,
But then there's
breaking it
also
into
like,
manageable pieces, several steps ahead, right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Things arise on set too, where you thought you would have a certain piece of equipment to get that shot you were trying to do, and then you do not. So you kind of have to improvise. A lot of improvisation goes into it. But that's where your innovation and your creativity really should just peak, because it gives you a lot of urge to create in the moment. It gets me excited when I'm like, oh, a challenge. Yes, I know how to do this. I think we can figure it out.
Yeah. And definitely the mental health breaks as well, right? Yeah. And even that can be incorporated into the pre-planning several steps ahead to be like to help mental health breaks be part of the whole planning and processing.
Yeah, mental health, it's a huge thing. Like burnouts, just on wanting to even go onto set that day to complete the project you've been working on for months.
Yeah, especially the more
Breaks.
like the more parts, the more complex a project is, in the sense of like having many different parts as well. Like like when I was watching the news a few months ago with several athletes dropping out of the Olympics, right? Like there I think Serena Williams dropped out, and also Naomi Osaka dropped out of their. No, I think it was Naomi Osaka dropped out, and then also Simone Biles dropped out of the figure skating. I mean, not figure skating, the gymnastics,
Gymnastics.
right? And I was reading about it and how some people were so entitled towards this person they don't even know, right? Some people were like, "Oh, this person's so like so lazy, and she should just like, you know, have tough skin or whatever, and move through." People who have never had the kind of achievement that she's had, like she's literally has moves named after her. Like that's how amazing she is. Like,
Yeah.
like she's done things like no one has ever done. She's already done enough. She doesn't have to do more. And but I was reading about it also about how like the moves, some of the things that at the level that she was doing, like other athletes have gone through something dangerous known as the twisties, where if you don't have the mental health, where your mind, you literally get dizzy while up in the air, so you're not able to control your body anymore. So you end up. There has been other athletes who literally like got half their body paralyzed or whatever due to the twisties, like where the mind went blank up in the air, so they were not able to control their body and they just fell down, right?
Yeah.
Or they twisted themselves in the way they shouldn't. And so that's why she took the mental health break. It was literally a life or death decision that some people don't know, because they don't know what a creative person has to go through. And this is another form of creativity as well. Like
Yeah. And you would just hope that everyone around you, everyone surrounding you could just respect that one simple thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this idea that no is a complete statement, right? That you don't have to explain yourself. You want to take a break, even from
Right,
something
right.
as big as the Olympics, you know? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No questions asked. Please, ma'am. Do as you please.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's difficult. And then having to explain yourself is another factor. So now you're
Mm,
trying to find words to describe how you're feeling in the moment, or something as dangerous as like, I may just physically hurt myself right now
mhm.
doing this because my
Yeah.
brain is exhausted.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. So to wrap up, what is your journey? Like what got you to where you are? Like in the sense of like either a story about who impacted you the most, or like basically like uh, a learning that you want to share with the audience that you feel it's important that they know. Like what was almost like a before and after story, right? Like before, like you before something happens, and then you had to pivot, and then you learn something from that pivot. Like what is the learning you want to share? Like,
Sure, a learning, it's not necessarily this to that kind of learning. It's just an overall understanding of how whatever I create, whatever I do in this lifetime, it's not a competition with anyone.
mm,
It's not a competition for me to create a better film than someone or a better show than someone else. It's truly everyone has their own thing that they're doing.
mhm,
Their meaning is different, their script is different.
mhm,
Whatever they end up doing is not what you did, but it's something that can encourage you to do what you want to
mm,
do. Create what you want to create because no one else is going to do it like you.
mm,
You are one being that can create something for a lot of beings to connect with.
mhm,
So just overall, it being not a competition, that is something I can tie into everything in my life, whether it's
mhm,
my work, my personal life, relationships I have with friends, family. Nothing is a competition. Everyone's in it to just live the life that is given to them now,
mm.
and just find purpose. Find your purpose. Everyone has a purpose.
Yeah. Yeah. That is a very good note to wrap this up and end this on. Thank you so much for being on here.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a really good time and I got a lot of good insight.
Yeah. So like what was like the number one like transformational learning from this call, like from this show that you got?
To stay tuned with myself, because what I am
Mm,
already thinking is these thoughts are there, and I just have to have good relationships with people like you who can help me and guide me in the thoughts that I have, the projections that also come to me in my
mm,
meditations or my readings. Um, they could be something I can relate to, but I can't get myself to see the reality in it until
mhm.
I have some guidance, professional guidance.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes, you just need that clear mirror, like that one the so-called metaphor of like being 3 feet away from gold, or 1 inch away from just the right shot when you play golf. Like it's sometimes you're
Absolutely.
just like a little bit away, but you sometimes you need somebody else to tell you, even though it is just 1 inch away, you're like, that is still important to have somebody else tell you that, hey, this is all you need to do. And you already know this, but I'm gonna confirm this for you. And you need that confirmation sometimes. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'm glad
Yeah.
that I can get connected with spiritual
Mhm.
individuals such as yourself. And
Mhm.
then also, I get that kind of guidance from my teammates.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah.
They
All right.
are all in tune just a little, like you said, one step away, one breath away, one blink away, who knows?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that one breath is so important. Like, I shared the story on Calvin's life, and I've said this often about uh, why is it so important to have calls like this, to have that clarity. Like clarity is like the most important thing. And Yuval Noah Harari, who said, you know, that in a world deluged by irrelevant information, clarity is power, right? And he has a story about, how he was before he wrote all of his best-selling books, like, Homo sapiens, Jews, Homo Deus, and 21 Lessons for the 21st Century, all of these like internationally best-selling books. And especially his first book, like Sapiens, he never expected that to be a bestseller. Like he wrote it as a professor in Israel, he wrote it for his students to help them understand some things. And he never expected an audience beyond his students, right? But because he came from a place of clarity and daily practice, the book was so clear and insightful that it became this bestseller, right? And there's a story behind it where he said that he started taking up the simple form of meditation, which, because meditation is real meditation, not colonized meditation. Real meditation is just about
Sure.
knowing reality exactly as it is, right? So he did this simple form of meditation where it was just about observing his breath, right? And in the beginning, and nowadays he meditates apparently 2 hours a day, and he also goes on these retreats at least 1 or 2 months a year as well, where he does the same type of meditation, which is just observing the breath. But in the beginning, he said he couldn't observe more than 3 breaths.
And
then his mind would get distracted, right?
Sure.
But one day, even that, just knowing that he couldn't observe his more than 3 breaths became a breakthrough realization for him, because it occurred to him one day, oh my God, I'm a professor of history, I'm here to teach my students about geopolitics, that the reality of what's going on, both in history and what's happening in the world right now, and to help students figure out what will happen based on history, right? But I can't even know the reality of my own breath for more than 3 breaths. So how can I know the reality
How
of
can I teach this?
geopolitics?
Yeah.
How can I teach anything else if I don't even know
Yeah.
this? That was his
Sure.
breakthrough realization. And it made him go deeper into his work. It made him sharper and more clearer.
Yeah. I realize that too with my work, is the whole ownership thing. If I do not have control and ownership, I'm kind of shit out of luck. I just kind of have to make sure that these productions get done from the angle that I went in at. And if I go in having ownership, having leadership in something, then cool. I know that things will get done, things will succeed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So his realization of 3 breaths, his attention span. Yeah, likewise,
Yeah.
my attention span is sometimes all over the place.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what am I actually doing today?
Yeah. I would assume he's gotten better since he's written the 3 books, and he's been meditating a lot more often since then, Yeah. But that was the beginning, and it made me realize about that too, to like really know what's going on with me first, and then to really know like what's going on in the world around me, and then in the world in general,
Yeah.
Yeah, that clarity, which is what this show is about, that clear focus, right?
I sure have a clear focus, and I'm going to seize the day. I know what I need to get done now.
Awesome. Yes, so this was beneficial for you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for having me on your show.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. I hope you have a great day, and I hope everybody who watches the replay on YouTube will have learned a lot and benefited from this discussion, from all the insights here as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, and thank you for allowing me to speak my voice today.
Yay.
Thank you.